Hey, and welcome to another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
I am Jake.
And we got an interview for you with Jim Rugg, Eisner Award-winning comic book creator.
Ooh.
Jim Rugg, might I add, who Jake and I saw win his Eisner like 2 years ago.
That's right.
It's wild. I never
is.
thought that we would have him on the show.
That was a crazy time.
Though I guess he's like the second or third Eisner winner. I think Gene Ha was the first.
Yes.
But we're not here to talk about Gene Ha.
No.
We're here to talk about Jim Rugg and his book, Street Angel, the after-school kung fu special, which gets a hardcover release out in comic book stores today. So keep an eye out for it. Let's let Jim talk about it. And joining us this week, we have Eisner Award-winning comic book creator Jim Rugg on the show talking about Street Angel, which gets a super deluxe edition hardcover through Image Comics in full color on April 26th. Jim, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
So let's go ahead and knock out the big question first. What made you want to bring Street Angel to Image Comics?
Well, Image Comics, I'm sure you hear this anytime you talk to an Image creator, but growing up, I wanted to be a cartoonist. When Image formed, it kind of changed my dreams a little bit. I no longer wanted to draw Wolverine and the Hulk. I wanted to draw my own creations. And so I was very young whenever they formed, and I've wanted to work with them ever since.
So it's kind of like a dream come true, like working alongside guys like Todd McFarlane and Eric Larson and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second part of it is they're a big creator-owned company. Like, they give me hopefully much wider distribution than I'm able to get doing indie, work with smaller companies. So that's part of the allure as well.
Well, and Street Angel had originally started out as a self-published title, right? Back in 2005?
It started out with a small publisher called SLG.
Mm-hmm.
They published a lot of Evan Dorkin's work. They published Johnny the Homicidal Maniac.
Right.
So it wasn't completely self-published, but it was definitely, an indie publisher.
Now, with this book, there is an action movie sensibility there. Like, you feel the way that you draw these punches and everything, or every kick. You just kind of feel it. Like, there's like a jaw rattling every time, Sanchez lands just a right hook on somebody. So how do you try to capture that kineticism, and what were some of your influences in getting those fights?
One of my first cartoonists that I was really into was Frank Miller, and he had a very dynamic style, like Daredevil and Dark Knight. And he was influenced by manga, which has a very dynamic, fluid, action-packed style, or at least some of it does. So I think some of the influences come from that. You mentioned it being cinematic. I'm certainly a movie fan. Again, I think most cartoonists are. And I think of Street Angel as a superhero comic, and I think that genre is partially defined by fights. So, you just have to figure out a way to make those things physical and exciting and somewhat unique and narrative. And I've been doing it for a while, so it's just something I think about a lot, and watch action movies whenever I can.
Do you have any big favorites?
I'm a kind of a child of the 80s stuff, so I have a run. I think I saw 5 or 6 Van Damme movies in theaters when they were released. That's kind of my sweet spot. So you can kind of trace through Stallone and Schwarzenegger and Van Damme and Steven Seagal and, probably all the usual suspects.
I would say that the Geek Out boys have a soft spot for Double Team, but I feel like I'm the only person among the Geek Out.
Yeah.
I got a soft spot for it.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
I enjoy the 2 times you forced me to watch it.
I haven't seen Double Team since it was originally released, and every year I do a show around the Washington, D.C. area and stay with a friend of mine who has a big home theater set up. So we watch movies, and that's one that's come up, but we haven't actually made it to that one yet. So maybe this year will be the revisit.
Invite Sam and he'll bring the DVD.
Yeah, I'll bring it with my copy of Megaforce.
Oh.
No, I mean, come on, it's Van Damme, it's Dennis Rodman, it's a match made in maybe not heaven, but it's a match made. But yes, so with this Image Comics edition of Street Angel, I think another really striking thing is, I mean, it's the color. It really makes the whole thing pop. So how did you kind of go about, like, really choosing the color scheme for this hardcover?
Man, I'm not sure where to begin with that. When I started making comics, color was prohibitively expensive, so I did black and white comics, and then shortly after I started, color started to become cheaper, as we went overseas for printing. And I've been trying to figure out how to do color for the last 10 years. So I look at everything. I watch videos on color. I read books on color and copy what I can and try to make up other stuff. It's a lot of trial and error. I've been working on Street Angel color comics for a couple of years, and I'll do each story slightly differently. And a lot of my approach is, it follows that path of do a story one way, and in the process, accidents happen, and I get ideas for how to try it differently on the next story or the next illustration. And, it's been a lot of just trial and error. So I'm glad to hear you say that you like the color. I think color's more important in comics now than it's ever been. And so, I'm trying to figure it out. And there's a lot of good examples, I think, out there, not just in comics, but like I said, I think a lot of video and film, and you have these people online sort of talking about different approaches to color in storytelling. So,
well, I kind of feel like it has the color scheme that you use, certainly at the beginning of Street Angel in this collection, are bright. There's pinks, there's very very vivid colors. There's almost like a for lack of a better term, a punk rock sensibility to it all.
Yeah, that makes sense. I love bright colors. I'm always surprised when either movies or comic books desaturate everything and everything turns either blue or brown. A lot of post-production is done with like adjusting color, and that disappoints me. Like I always think, go outside, look around, there's so many colors that we have access to now. And coming from, I read comics in the 80s whenever the color palette was very limited, and I had done a book that used that color palette. So once I got into contemporary comics, it was like, there are so many colors available, and we have these monitors. I swear we can see color now that we couldn't see 20 years ago, just from exposure to better screens. So I want to take advantage of that. Like, I love it. I love color.
Yeah, very robust. Now, I feel like Jake and I were in the audience when this happened, but a couple years ago now, you won the Eisner for Nemo, for the production design with that. I was wondering how that all kind of came about, that anthology.
Yeah, I knew those guys for, many, many years. The guys behind Locust Moon Comics, Chris Stevens, Andrew. I've known those guys just as friends through other cartoonists. And my background is in print production. I worked as a graphic designer for several years. I went to school for graphic design. So when they started putting the book together, I can't remember if they approached me about a cover. Somehow, through the process of talking, I ended up art directing that project. And I think it was, I've talked myself into quite a few jobs. So I have a feeling they were looking for a comic. And, as we got into details about it, I just took over designing the book. And yeah, it turned out very well. A lot of that isn't my doing. I think a lot of the reason that book is so great, they had a pretty strong editorial control over what was coming in. And that doesn't always happen in an anthology. And the people that contributed really brought their A game. So I think most of the credit for that book goes to the cartoonist that contributed to it more than the design itself. But it was a pretty exciting book to work on. It happened at probably the busiest time of my life work-wise, but I kind of had to do it because it's that giant book. I assume you've seen the book itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's enormous, and I just thought I'm never going to have a chance to work with something like this again. So I couldn't pass it up.
I mean, the work speaks for itself, and hopefully the Eisner speaks for itself. I mean, should speak volumes too, right?
I suppose, yes.
It's like the ultimate invalidation. But yeah, to take it back to Street Angel, between Street Angel and, we were talking about the fights in that book, and of course Aphrodisiac kind of has a grindhouse influence. What do you think it is about the kind of like martial arts? I mean, there's ninjas, or there's a ninja sensibility to Street Angel. And Aphrodisiac kind of has a blaxploitation sensibility to it. What do you think it is about that kind of grindhouse '70s, '80s period that is so. What makes that so appealing?
It's probably just nostalgia, for me. Like I grew up on that stuff, watching, kind of dumb movies on weekends, in the early days of cable. More than anything for me, it's probably nostalgia. Ninjas were an important part of my childhood, and I'm happy to revisit them, with these Action Comics.
Well, I mean, it definitely speaks volumes there, and I mean, I guess you'd be there at the right time for the original OG Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as well.
Yes, that's true.
Was that a big influence as well?
Absolutely. And they were a huge influence not just for the comics, but also for sort of that idea of create your own thing, own your own thing, self-publish your own comic. All of that stuff was very exciting too. But when I was trying to figure out how to make comics, I was reading Marvel and DC comics, and what I was drawing did not look like those. They were in color, they were perfectly lettered. No matter how well I drew, it just didn't look that way. So whenever I got hold of books like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that were black and white and kind of dirty looking and weird, that made a lot of sense to me visually. It was that looked a lot closer to what I was drawing. Mm-hmm. So as an aspiring cartoonist, they were just huge. Now,
as I work at a university here in the DC area as kind of a day job, and I, also as an educator, what has teaching visual art taught you about your own art style?
I don't know what it's taught me about my own art style. Style and voice is something that we have a lot of conversations about, and I feel like it's an inevitable thing, so I don't tend to focus on those as much. One thing that it's done for me is, so I teach at the School of Visual Arts in their Visual Narrative MFA program, and I've been there since the beginning, since before classes actually started. I built my own curriculum for my classes, and I've gone through, I think we're in our 4th year of students now. But it's a multidisciplinary program. So we have filmmakers, animators, game designers, illustrators. We have this wide variety of visual artists that they show up with the same goal, but the way they apply the visual storytelling may be very different from student to student. And so it's forced me to get into things like picture books, have been one of my favorite, I suppose, influences over the last several years, because we have students that are making picture books, So I've been looking at common visual storytelling components across these different media, and that's been very informative for my own practice.
Now, to kind of take it back to Street Angel, what do you think it is about? I mean, Sanchez is, she's a bit of an outcast. She's an orphan. What do you think is it about that misfit quality that makes what is it about misfit protagonists that make them so appealing?
Well, they're underdogs. That's a big thing. I think everybody cheers for an underdog. But being an outcast, I think everybody can relate to that as well. When I started reading comics as a kid, that was a huge appeal for me. I felt like an outcast. I think that's pretty common for teenagers and kids to sort of transition as they move from who their parents think they are to discovering who they are. There's a lot of time in the middle where you're not sure who you are, and you feel like an outcast, and you kind of look at different groups and different sets of friends and different types of people to try to identify yourself, somewhere. And so I think outcast is just a very common part of the human experience.
And so I mean, because, again, Sanchez, Jessie doesn't have it easy at all. She might be a kung fu master, she might be an awesome skateboarder, but again, there's certain realities there that she's a bit of a social pariah. I mean, she's again an orphan. So, and yet she's stoic about the whole thing, though. She doesn't seem, at least outwardly, let it seem to get her down.
Yeah, what are you going to do? You can't just find parents. She's definitely was dealt a bad hand in life, but everybody has sort of different obstacles to overcome or that they face, and you can either dwell on those or keep moving forward. And for her, it's a matter of survival. If she stops moving, what's she going to do? Starve and freeze to death on the streets? So, in a very practical sense, she just survives.
Do you find it kind of difficult hitting? Because I mean, even though I was mentioning all this pretty heavy stuff, it is. I mean, Street Angel is again kind of like this punk rock coming of age explosion. There's a lot of fun there. Those fights aren't necessarily the most brutal fights. They're almost like Scott Pilgrim before Scott Pilgrim, right? There is a bright, colorful, almost video game-esque quality to them. Like, do you find it how do you find it trying to strike that balance between the more rooted elements and the keeping the fun going?
That's makes me laugh. I think sometimes in my head, what I imagine is quite different than what readers see. We try to, I think of the book as a comedy. So we're trying to find moments of levity and humor within this world that, as you described, has some heavy elements. We look for the humor stuff. We look for these mismatches and odd pairings of characters and try to find moments in her situation that are hopefully funny to the outsider. Similar to the humor in The Office, where if you were in the office, it would be terrible. But if you're watching it with a screen between you, you can kind of laugh at the characters a little bit more easily. So it's something we try to do. I think that we've become more influenced by cartoons a lot. Brian and I, and the stories that we're telling with Street Angel, and cartoons have that, especially things like Looney Tunes. I kind of rediscovered those as an adult, and I was surprised to see how violent they were, how politically incorrect they are in today's world. But it's like, that's what I watched whenever I was a kid for, hours and hours. And I think that informs our sensibility quite a bit. And humor tends to come out of extreme situations.
It does, and I feel like in middle school, like in 7th grade, like Jesse, like it's all the emotions are dialed up to 11. Everything works in extremes.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, to those listening at home that haven't, read Street Angel or checked it out, it's not. There is no reverent quality to it, but there is kind of. Again, Jesse's an outsider. There's something. There's something there. There's a reason why there's that chip on her shoulder.
Yeah, and I think people can relate to that. I remember being a very angry teenager and probably 20-something as well. So I think people can relate to that, even if they're not, not homeless or whatever, not an orphan. It makes me laugh to hear you say orphan a couple of times, because she is technically an orphan, but that used to be almost a staple in characters. And I don't hear that term very much anymore. It seems weird as we describe Street Angel, not just on this show, but as Brian and I describe it to people. Orphan is just a word that isn't used the way it used to be used, I think, or isn't used much at all, maybe.
Not since who's the most famous orphan? Would it be like Bruce Wayne or Oliver Twist?
Harry Potter?
Oh yeah,
Superman.
Yeah.
There are plenty of them out there.
Oh, yeah.
You could have an all-star team of orphans.
That's right.
It's just not a term that's used. I don't know. It seemed like it was more common in the past.
That's true.
Yeah, it's
I can
kind
see
of
that.
It's almost like an anachronism, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta know, because we're all big Frank Miller fans, but I'm like a fucking psychopath with Frank Miller stuff. Like my I think my lifelong goal is just to have everything, like to own all of his. I'm on a binge right now buying like just some of the covers he did for Marvel on eBay, just here and there. Just that's everything I'm buying. Is there a certain work, or maybe like a not so talked about work of his, that you think, or that really inspired you or hit you artistically in some kind of way?
No, there isn't. I became a huge Miller fan, and like all of his work was somewhat accessible because I started reading comics when he was in LA, writing screenplays like late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So I started by buying, old Daredevils. I actually traded a bunch of Rob Liefeld New Mutants for like a complete run of Miller Daredevils at one point, which was pretty awesome. And then I filled in the gaps. Like I got Dark Knight and Ronin. Ronin was really big for me. I found it at a flea market and had no idea what it was. Mm-hmm. And that's more of that manga influence. And, the cross hatching and the fight scenes, like that stuff just blew my mind. And then he started coming back to making comics, shortly after that. So as I was discovering him, he shows up and starts producing Sin City and Dark Horse Presents, which was huge. Like that was, right in my wheelhouse, reading it as it was coming out. That was another example of like black and white comics. I remember he was lettering it himself, and the lettering was weird. I could tell it was different, and I'm looking at it, and it's like, man, he's doing everything. You can be a cartoonist and just do everything yourself, write it and draw it and letter it. So that was big. But even, things like Hard Boiled was coming out then. That was a kind of a mind-blowing book for me. So I don't know if there's one in particular work. Sin City was pretty interesting because it was black and white at a time when black and white books were considered impossible to sell. He again was doing everything himself, so it had kind of a rough edge around it. Graphically, I had never seen anything that looked like it, and it was like I've had people call Street Angel a fusion comic, which refers to me just putting everything I love into it. Whatever influences those are, even if they seem like a weird fit. And I think you could point to Sin City and be like, that's an early fusion comic. It's him doing noir and him just doing whatever he wants to do, even if it doesn't seem like it should work in a comic. So that one was pretty big for me.
Yeah. The way he uses like you're saying, the black and white is fascinating. He uses like negative space and everything really well.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, graphically, it just does stuff that, blew my mind. But, Elektra Assassin is probably one of my favorite comics, and it has that same amazing graphic sensibility, even though he's not the one drawing it.
Sure.
It's another example of like, I didn't know you could do this, or, how does this work? I've never seen anything like this. So he's, and Hard Boiled in some ways is that way. I hadn't really seen comics that looked like Hard Boiled before that. Sure. I'm not sure I've seen any that look like it since then either.
Yeah, and that's a massive book too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I will say there is, because the original, again, for listeners at home who don't know, Street Angel was originally in black and white, like you were alluding to earlier. There is, like, I forget when it happens. I feel like it's early in the run where, like, Jesse takes on a bunch, just like a Kill Bill amount of ninjas. And in, like, black and white, that was very, for me, that's very, especially with the kind of, like, the white blood splatter, like in Sin City, that was very Sin City.
Yeah, I'm, definitely it was a big influence.
Now, Jim, something we ask everybody that comes on the show: what are you currently geeking out over?
Man, I was prepared for this question, but it's hard for me to boil it down. One thing I'm super excited about that I just got is a book of, it's called "It's Not About Pretty," a book about radical skater girls, and it's a photography book. And it's just photographing girl skateboarders of all ages in skate parks on the street. It's amazing. It's like such a resource for me because I have I have books of skateboard photography, but this one's dedicated to featuring just women, and it's amazing. So I have been looking through that for about a week, and it's not going away anytime soon.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, what is it about the image of, I mean, obviously, again, Jessie is a skateboarding girl. What is it about that image of a girl skateboarder that you just find so striking?
I don't know if it's the girl skateboarder that I find striking. Skateboarding in general for me, like seeing skate videos as a kid, it always struck me as like, this is what superhero stuff would look like, if it were moving around. It just kind of defied physics in a way that I don't know what you would compare it to. So I think skateboarding itself is the attraction for me. Having a girl lead is probably more related to superhero tendencies in comics than it is, girl skateboarders in particular. But since I draw a girl skateboarder, I follow a bunch of girl skateboarders, and like having, photo reference of girl skateboarding is very useful.
I will say, I feel like when Street Angel premiered, we're kind of thankfully seeing a boon in female protagonists. When Street Angel premiered, over a decade ago, that was not the norm. So it's cool to kind of see Street Angel lead that charge.
Yeah, it's come a long way in 10 or 15 years. It's amazing. It's not just that there weren't a lot of women characters, Obviously creators have become more diverse. I think there are a lot of great women creators now, more than there probably were percentage-wise back then. But even things like all ages books or young adult books, I think readership has changed a lot. And I think the comics industry has changed to accommodate that readership. And so you see these books that are, available for all different audiences. And I think that's a major difference that's happened in really 15 years, maybe.
So, I guess, Jim, what can we expect in this again this very impressive, brightly presented hardcover of Street Angel? What can we what other accoutrement can we expect?
Well, in terms of story or extras in the book,
either. I mean,
well,
again,
in case listeners aren't familiar with the story, so the first book is called After School Kung Fu Special, and Jessie arrives. It's kind of a bit of slice of her life. So she arrives at school late. She's always late. She's a terrible student. She has a good reason for being late. Saving the world, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But she arrives at school to find a threatening note taped to her locker. Basically, she has a pretty good reputation at school. Like, people aren't messing with her. Sometimes she intercedes on behalf of somebody being bullied, and that pretty much protects that person. But the flip side is it's almost like a gunslinger mentality. Mm-hmm. So other kids will kind of try to earn their stripes by challenging her from time to time to a showdown. And that's what happens in After School Kung Fu Special is a cocky kid challenges her to a fight. And so we see that escalate, kind of throughout the day, and different trouble that she gets into as a result of that. And meanwhile, there's a school dance coming up, and her friends are trying to get her to go to this dance, which is, teen angst, and her situation really doesn't lend itself to socializing and going to dances. So she's trying to balance friends and deal with this bully at school.
And to make matters worse, it's a Sadie Hawkins dance.
Right. That's true. Yeah, she needs to find a date if she wants to go.
I was always kind of bummed because, like, in high school or middle school, we never had Sadie, or elementary, in no school, no level of education I've ever been to where festive occasions were had. We didn't have Sadie Hawkins dances. I would always have to be the one that would have to nut up and ask the date. And so I was always kind of bummed that we didn't have something like that.
Yeah, that's a lot of pressure for a young man.
It's a lot of pressure now. And I'm an older man. Well, Jim, sometimes we get too personal in here. Jesus. Anyway, so Jim, while we got you on the show, is there anything else you'd like to plug?
No, everything is pretty much Street Angel on my drawing table. So that's my plug is, Street Angel, Street Angel, Street Angel.
Can we expect more after the After School Kung Fu Special?
I am working on new Street Angel stories. Absolutely. I post some of them online at streetangelcomic.com. And I post my newest story. It's Street Angel story called Superhero for a Day. Mm-hmm. And I post pages as I complete them on a Patreon page, which is patreon.com/streetangel.
Do you, you've been working on Street Angel again for over a decade. How do you still tap into those kind of middle school, those young adolescent emotions?
A lot of fist fights. Yeah. I don't know how much I tap into the emotional side of it. They're kind of adventure stories first, maybe, and adolescent exploration second. But I like young adult fiction. I had done some young adult graphic novels in the past, and it kind of hooked me. Like, I just love genre. So once I get exposed to a genre, I tend to deconstruct it and look at it. And so young adult is a pretty rich genre, so I find inspiration through that.
Yeah. And again, I feel like I've been playing up the emotional aspect in this interview, but there is kind of, at once, there is Jessie's circumstances, but there is that, in the case of, like, kind of getting into that young adult perspective, there is a wide-eyed sense of wonder throughout Street Angel, which, again, I would kind of compare a bit to, say Scott Pilgrim or, something, just because that's got, the pretty cool fisticuffs as well, very kinetic fisticuffs, but also something as like innocent and coming of age as like China Clugston Flores' like Blue Monday. So I think you've got, I think you strike a good balance. And again, it's got some fights, so it's, well done, man. It was a lot of fun to read.
Well, thank you very much.
But yeah, so Jim, thanks again for coming on the show. And again, Street Angel, the after school kung fu special, will be out in a hardcover everywhere in comic shops on Wednesday, April 26th. Jim, thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, what a fine interview.
Yes, it was. Yeah, I'm inclined.
What a fun interview.
I do think that with that interview, you hear like the difference. Like you're talking like art influences. I'm like, let's talk more about the emotions.
Yeah. Classic.
So you get a little dichotomy there. And thanks again to Jim for coming on. And he,
Yeah.
he listened to us before he came on the show and still agreed to do it.
It's crazy.
Wild.
It's crazy. Every so often I wake up in a cold sweat realizing that all the shit we've been saying for 3 years is on the internet, backlogged forever.
Yeah. I mean, we can take it off iTunes if we ever like die.
Yes, when we're dead, we will then take it off.
I mean, presumably
That's what kills us.
Once the credit card payments stop going through, it'll just automatically get taken down.
Is that how it works?
Well, yeah. So like,
Through Libsyn?
yeah. So
so we have a built-in.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We have a failsafe. So all of our audio files and whatnot are stored on Libsyn. There's just an XML file that goes to iTunes that links back to Libsyn. So nothing's actually stored on iTunes.
Oh,
Oh.
fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Fascinating.
Next on How Podcasts Work the Podcast.
Now you guys at home know how to do it. You should do it.
Yeah. Get a Libsyn account.
We could use the competition.
Because, those guys at How Did This Get Made aren't providing none. That's right. Let's start rivalries with famous podcasts.
I think we should take on the New York Times.
Do they have their own podcast? I'm not surprised.
The Daily.
Yeah. Last Podcast on the Left. They're a bunch of schmucks like us. Let's fight them.
Yeah.
They're also in New York. And I feel like I could take at least one of them.
How many of them are there?
3. So we pair off?
I would love to do, like, if we ever had another comic book crossover, and it's probably, maybe it'll happen at, like, Awesome Con or something, I can get, like, Zach to take the picture, to have, but you wouldn't be there, so it wouldn't be complete, to have, like, the comic book, like teams facing off each other.
Yeah.
Like the Suicide Squad, like, Justice League pose, or the, Avengers
I still
X-Men.
say we need to dress up as like the Three Musketeers, like like the most accurate possible outfits of the Three Musketeers.
Hundreds of
possible.
dollars spent just for one.
Yeah, a photo that's
More
blurry.
accurate than Disney's The Three
Yes.
Musketeers.
I like the Three Musketeers.
They're cool. Who's your favorite Musketeer?
Ooh.
Chris
O'Donnell.
Which is the one that
Pathos.
is that? Yeah, that's Oliver Reed played Pathos, right?
Porthos.
Porthos.
Yeah.
Oh, Pathos is a
I just know them as 1,
adjective.
2. I just know them
Yeah.
as 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My favorite. Sometimes it's 1. Sometimes it's 2.
It's
Sometimes it's 3.
Athos,
It's-
Porthos, Aramis, and then there's also D'Artagnan,
Yeah.
but he's not technically.
That's
one.
Chris O'Donnell.
Yeah.
So it's Oliver Platt, Charlie Sheen, and Kiefer Sutherland.
Sounds right.
I think that's
Young
who-
Guns almost.
Young Guns,
Yeah, I think-
but in like middle-aged France.
Yeah, like Revolutionary era France.
Yeah.
I think it's Oliver Reed played Porthos.
Oliver
Mm.
Platt.
Oliver Reed.
Reed.
Back in the day.
There was
Oh,
one, there was one in the
back in the day.
70s as
Gotcha.
well. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one that's like
Sorry.
Directed by Richard Donner, no less.
Oh.
That's what got him.
Superman's own Richard Donner.
Yeah, or was it Richard Lester? One of the Richards.
Yeah, I don't remember.
One of the Dicks recorded or filmed a
Look at these
an
goddamn dicks.
Dicks.
Do you think that's time? Because it's kind of like with Robin Hood, with I'm blanking on everything else, but Robin Hood, like there's always going to be another movie based on so and so.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think there could
You
be
mean-
like
You mean like
another-
the Paul W.S. Anderson?
With Logan Lerman as D'Artagnan.
And,
oh yeah, when did that one come
and
out?
Mila Jovovich as
5 years ago.
Every 5 years they're probably
Yeah, I think around 2011, 2012 cuz I went and saw it
In New York?
before I moved to New York. It was while I was in college. I actually watched it to write a paper on the 3D effects used in it.
Who would you cast? I don't know why I'm just going down the Three Musketeers. Because I was talking to somebody about work about it, and he like loved Three Musketeers, and like he was talking about when he did stage acting and stage like combat. Yeah. One of the things they always focused on was how each of the Musketeers have a different fighting style. They don't all don't fight the same, so each one has their own fighting style, which is something that he's remembered ever since he was younger and whatnot. So I'd cast Hilary Swank, Jane Levy. No, I cast Kelsey Grammer, David Hyde Pierce, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I don't know. Tom Hardy. Ryan Gosling. I'm just gonna let it be silent.
For anyone playing at home, I was correct at the casting of the Three Musketeers in Disney's The Three Musketeers. It was Charlie Sheen, Kiefer Sutherland, and Oliver Platt.
That's the 90s one, correct?
Yes. The one with Tim Curry as Cardinal Richelieu.
Oh, Tim Curry. What a guy.
Yeah.
What a man.
Love Tim Curry.
What a man, what a man. If I remember correctly, today, the day that we are recording this, if not today, then recently, was his birthday.
Oh.
So happy birthday, Tim Curry.
Yes.
I'm currently reading it, as well as Jake. Jake is too.
I just started The Stand.
Oh.
My buddy just finished that. That's a long...
So we'll ask you how it was in 2 years.
Yeah,
when you're
it's
done
the
with
uncut version, too, so it's like over 1,100 pages.
Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
And you're actually reading it? You're not like Jake and I and listening to it?
Nope. Got the text. So slowly but surely I will make my way through The Stand.
I love in the new Ghostbusters movie when they're like, did you get it on audiobook? He's like, no, I know how to read. I was like, that was directed at me.
Take that, Jake Bozick.
Yeah, that's right.
Looks right at the screen.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you guys I've been listening to a lot of country music lately. I like southern rock, and I like folk rock, generally speaking. And I feel like country music isn't that far off.
Yeah, if you drained it of all melody, personality, lyrical content, throw in a dash of Jack Daniels,
got you feeling so high,
a tractor, and some kind of got
you feeling so high.
It's funny because like if it wasn't for you like
making fun of it,
psycho obsessed with that song. Like if that played on the radio, it just would have been like, it's just another thing. But now that song is like part of my DNA.
I have a corrupting influence, really.
Yeah. It is a fucking weird
tune.
Hodgepodge.
Yeah.
Of ideas.
We're talking about the album opener from the Zac Brown Band album, Jekyll and Hyde, where he has got two different colored eyes for some reason on the album cover, and it's just his face. And the opening track is Beautiful Drug, which really hits home love is a drug metaphor, really in almost every line, if not every line. Mm-hmm. There is a line...
Is there?
In that song. Also, it's like an EDM country song, which is weird.
Yeah.
But it's the Zac Brown Band. He always kind of like does like more eclectic things. Like there's a reggae song on that album. There's a lot of weird shit on that album. But yeah, there's a line in that song that like cracks me up every time, which is why I force-fed this one to the rest of the guys on the show. Thanks, Alexa. Alexa, stop. Thank you.
Write that down.
The line is, she got me hooked like a junkie. Got me feel, and then he like shouts this like, got me feeling so high.
Which I still don't understand why he doesn't say, got me feeling so funky.
Yeah, to make it rhyme. Yeah. Instead he goes with the high, and he emphasizes it by like shouting it.
And then like harmonizes the second time.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's in a hallway. And
yeah. Is that like, I don't know, I mean.
It doesn't sound bad. It's just I am not interested in, and I've seen them live and they're really good, but that song,
they didn't play that one?
No. I don't think they'd written it yet. But like
It was sitting on the back burner of his mind.
They hadn't shat on a music tablature.
Yeah, but there is nothing. Like there's no heartbeat. There's no anything from that. It's just
I like the drums and the bass line.
It has like that 90s.
4 on the floor. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's good country out there. I've been listening to Sam Outlaw. His 2015 album Angelino was really good. I've been listening to Chris Shiflett, the lead guitarist of the Foo Fighters, has one of his side bands is Chris Shiflett and the Dead Peasants, and that's kind of California country, which is to say like closer to the Eagles than the Charlie Daniels Band, which is like very up tempo, a lot of melody.
Can't wait for the Red Hot Chili Peppers country album to come out. That would be California country.
Yeah. Did anybody listen to their most recent album, The Getaway?
I believe Zach has. Friend of the show, Zach.
Well, you saw him in concert.
That's true.
too.
So presumably they played some songs from that album.
Hopefully, yeah.
He just went to him last week?
yeah. At the time of recording this, yeah. I don't know.
So Zach, how was it? How's the new stuff?
Yeah. Is there any country-tinged numbers on there? I know there's a country...
By the time he tweets at us, I'm not going to remember that we asked him this question, like most of the time. And I'm just going to sit there like, what the fuck is he talking about?
There's a country-tinged number on the album One Hot Minute called Peanut by Flea, about him getting harassed by a southern man at a truck stop. So... check it. No. Listen to Beautiful Drug, and then tweet at me and tell me how frustrated you are that you made me.
Why, Sam?
Yeah.
Why did you make me? And why did I listen to you? Yeah. Why do I let you rule my world?
We all ask that sometimes. I ask myself that sometimes. Like, why do you give in to your baser instincts? You guys get into anything? You.
For those listening at home, he's talking to me.
Maybe I'm talking to them.
Yeah, you listener.
Yeah, didn't you start a show? No.
Well, I recently started a rewatch of the Twin Peaks.
Yeah, in preparation, and
I have started the revival or the return, as they call it, of MST3K.
Oh yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. How is that?
It's pretty good so far. I'm only 3 episodes in because I'm pacing myself. I decided to not binge it. I'm not in a binging mood. Especially after I finished. Oh, by the way, I finished Dragon Ball Z Kai.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So
speaking of
all
binging,
Boo?
No. So that
they haven't gotten that far yet.
I'm sorry. I finished what had been released at the time of my finding it online. Boo, they still haven't even started Boo yet. Right now on Cartoon Network, if you were to watch what's being presented there, is the martial arts games, whatever the interlude
the
between the interlude between Cell and Boo, or the Cell games and Boo. So I set up a recording on my DVR, and I'm watching that like as it comes out, so that I have kind of like a palate cleanser from binging. But yeah, so Mystery Science Theater 3000: The Return, pretty good. I mean, I expected it was going to be, at least all right, because like Joel Hodgson is back as a producer, executive producer. I'm a big fan of Jonah Ray, who is the new test subject. I don't think any of the voice actors returned. I think these are all new voice actors for the robots. Although they do a halfway decent job of imitating the original voices. And friend of our lives, not directly because I'm the closest one to have ever meeting him. Patton Oswalt is very funny as TV's son of TV's Frank, which I thought was very funny of a name choice. And then Felicia Day. I think this is one of my favorite roles of hers, because I a while ago I got kind of burnt out on Felicia Day because I was like, oh, okay, she just keeps playing the cute nerdy girl, and like, while that's great, that's who she is in real life, so I was like, okay, let's dust off the acting chops, I just when you get tired of seeing someone playing the same role over and over again, That's what happened to me. And like, so this is kind of a new thing, and she's doing a great job. And everyone's doing a great job. The jokes are funny. The movies are weird. You know, I was actually reading up about it today, and apparently what Joel Hodgson and the writers did is they went through and like got an aggregate of like what's considered the 20 best episodes of the entire original series. Not just the first couple seasons where he was the test subject, but even like Michael J. Nelson stuff. And really kind of based the entire new series around like what was good about those episodes, what made those episodes funny. So it's pretty fun. There's still like 11 episodes left for me to watch. So who knows? It could take a huge downturn later, but right now I'm giving it the old thumbs up. One thing I really like about it is it still breaks for commercial.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. What kind of commercials do they show?
Oh, they don't show any commercials. They just like kind of has like bumpers. And one of my friends on Facebook was like, "Oh yeah, I think that's because they had gotten into production of the series before they got picked up by Netflix, so they added that in just in case they needed commercial bumper space." And I was like, good. I couldn't find anything that corroborated that, but that's the assumption that I'm going on right now.
Jake, you've started Chef's Table.
Tom Hardy, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leonardo DiCaprio is already in The Man with the Iron Mask,
Yeah.
which features the Three Musketeers.
It's technically the sequel.
Tom Hardy, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Henry Cavill. I've watched episode and a half of Chef's Table.
So you've only seen the Ivan Orkin episodes?
Yeah. I'm in the middle of watching. I asked Sam what his favorite ones are, and I'm in the middle of watching. I guess you said he was your favorite one, or one of them.
Jong Kwan.
Season 3 premiere, pretty amazing. Pretty amazing. And it's I like watching food shows. Like it's just something calming about it. It's like watching golf. Except you don't eat golf. You may eat golf.
Not with that attitude.
Yeah.
Got you, Zach.
But I don't know. It's cool. I mean, like it's taking like these crazy minds and the best of their field, and
Yeah, it's like they're like hunt the earth.
Yeah,
for the best.
The best of the best. And it's what 4 seasons, 3 seasons?
4 seasons if you count Chef's Table France, because there's 3 the main series.
But no one does.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess if you're at food, you do count France.
Yeah, there's 3 in the core series. There's 3 seasons, and then Chef's Table France was a spin-off season.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
You haven't watched Tim Rao,
I couldn't remember. I looked through like the description, and I couldn't.
It
remember
doesn't
his
say
name.
evil
It has
German.
yeah, it doesn't say evil German. It doesn't say anything about Germany. And so I was like, shit, I can't remember. So I was like, I need to finish I was telling Sam the reason I keep stalling on the one that I'm watching is it's so peaceful and relaxing. And I'm usually watching when I get home from work. Yeah. I'm freaking tired. It's very zen and she's a monk.
Yeah.
She's a monk.
Ivan, on the other hand.
Ivan is a force to be reckoned with.
Ivan Drago?
All honesty, yes.
He's like a New Yorker, period. Like he's straight up like a New Yorker.
His thing is I first saw him on an episode. It's really fucking okay. I'm taking off Leonardo DiCaprio and I'm putting in
Ivan Orkin.
Ivan Orkin. Yes, Ivan Orkin is Ivan Orkin, Tom Hardy, and Henry Cavill are my 3 Musketeers. There you go. Thank you, Ivan Orkin. No, but I was watching an episode. There's a great YouTube channel called First We Feast, and they do, I think, the most genius show around involving food called Hot Ones, where they have 10 wings, and they get progressively hotter from like sriracha to not 357. That used to be the hottest. Blair's Mega Death Sauce with Liquid Rage is the hottest they have now. And they interview like celebrities and athletes, and they ask 10 questions. They get progressively harder as it gets hotter, and usually by the end, they're so delirious if they make it to the point that they're answering anything. And Sean Evans is the guy that it's from Complex magazine, I think, and he is the guy who interviews him. Anyway, he did a thing where he talks all about ramen, and he goes to Ivan Ramen. That's what it's called, right, in New York. And this like super eccentric, like even like. I've worked a little bit in food, not saying I'm know anything about it, but I've just been around like chefs and stuff, back in the day, and they're very eccentric people, and they can be very uptight because their livelihood is their perfection with food and whatnot, especially if it's higher class. Anyway, so this guy like really, I wouldn't say like rubbed me the wrong way, but I'm watching. I'm like, this guy is such an asshole. Like, but it's like
he's very acerbic.
Yes, but it's very entertaining because he's like, fuck it, and it's not like Gordon Ramsay. It's just like he'll be like, people come in and they see a white Jewish guy making it and they're like, you can't make ramen. I'm like, fuck you. And I'm like, wow, this guy is entertaining as shit.
The ramen bar that I went to in D.C. was full of white guys.
Yeah.
And Spanish guys.
And his thing,
I didn't see a single person.
Japanese.
Yeah, I didn't see a single person that I could identify as of Japanese descent in that entire bar.
And his thing is like,
maybe the host.
The
face that runs the place.
His thing is like, bringing back the slurping and really like diving into it. And there's a certain way to eat it, but there's really no rules, which is why he's like the master.
Well, and he doesn't like being called a chef. He's like, I'm a cook.
Yeah. And again, like little things where I'm like, yeah, you fucking dick. But like then at the same time, he's probably like, good, fuck you, like piece of shit. You don't have to watch my shit.
He's very,
fuck.
Yeah.
And so in the comments, someone was like, you have to watch his Chef's Table. I was like, oh shit, that's the show Sam's talking about. So I immediately jumped on like the next day and searched. I was like, what the fuck's his name? And then like I saw his fucking face on the thing. I was like, that's him. That's Ivan.
Then you saw his face, and now you're a believer.
Yes, I'm a believer. And I was like, you little fuck. And so I watched it, and it starts off, and I don't remember exactly, and he's like,
well, the prologue is just like, people walk in my restaurant, and it's just like, there's a general fuck it attitude. It's like, my attitude is just generally like, fuck it.
And I'm like, fuck it, and fuck you. And then it's like, oh.
Fuck it, fuck it, fuck it.
Sometimes the prologue is my favorite part, but he's just like, my general attitude with life is just like, fuck it, or fuck off, or whatever. You can kind of see when people walk in like to the restaurant, it's just like, fuck it, I guess I'm having ramen.
Yeah. And his thing, again, like so much is like tapping into the idea that there's no rules with ramen, which is I think what really attracted him to it.
So they should serve it at the Outback Steakhouse.
No rules, just ramen.
Yeah.
Outback ramen.
Yeah.
And
let's make this happen, America.
It's not the first time they've taken a traditionally non-Australian dish and just were like, we're going to make it Australian because we're Americans.
And he was like,
because it's an American company.
Indeed. And he's like, fuck it, this and that, blah, blah, blah. And I'm watching, I'm like, man, this fucking dick. But then he leads this like crazy life. And he has tragedy in his life as well. But this idea that like, it reminded me of, not attitude-wise, but career-wise, like Frank Miller. Like he's been molded by Japanese culture. With the way he writes, the way he does storytelling, especially with his art. And he did some of those great covers when they did like Lone Wolf and Cub, and they collected it in bigger, not hardback, but bigger collections or whatever. And you could see a lot of that in like Ronin and his other work. So I kept thinking of like Frank Miller, which is, to be fair, I think about Frank Miller all the time. And, but you watch his life, he's like, he doesn't really know what he wants to do. He keeps going back and forth from Japan. Like he's moved back and forth like multiple times. And like the shows are like, they're not like 30-minute shows. Like they're like hour, I think sometimes even a little bit longer than an hour.
50 to a little over an hour.
Yeah. And just really interesting in his life and, where he's at, and the fact that like, when he opened his first ramen bar, it was in, Japan.
And he was, just to see, and he refused to open it up in the tourist quarter.
Yeah, and like the most like renowned guy who's had like 50,000, 30,000 bowls of ramen, like walks in.
To put that in perspective, you have to keep in mind that ramen is like second only to rice in East Asian cuisine. Like ramen's like bread to the Japanese, Korean, and Chinese cultures. Like they eat a lot of noodles.
Yeah,
it's not just shitty cup of noodle instant bullshit that you could hear in America.
Yeah. Although, doesn't he have his own that you can buy? Like I saw it at one point in the show. Now. Yeah, like earlier, like they had like a pack, like or some kind of thing of like Ivan ramen noodles. And anyway, so he starts off, and like the first day, like the food critic ramen guy walks in, and he was like, "Oh fuck it," he's like, "Fuck me," And so the guy supposedly eats it, stands up, and he's like. He says something to him, and then he's like, you know Japanese, and then walks out. And Ivan's like, fuck you.
I do know Japanese.
Yeah. And then...
to his credit, he does.
Yeah, and the guy is like, it was amazing. Yeah. Which is like, it plays really weird. Like, you thought he was going to like come back in, but no, he just... Anyway, so he like kind of like rockets to stardom. Now, it's not an overnight success because, again, it took him forever to realize what he wanted to do. And
he worked as a corporate chef for a while.
yeah, and then didn't he like drive his first wife, who passed away sadly, to and from like the office or work, whatever.
Yeah, he was when he first moved to Japan after he became because he goes there right after college to teach English. Figures out that doesn't want to teach English.
Yeah. Didn't he also go to culinary school for a bit and took that horrible picture, that great
Yeah.
picture with his eyes closed?
Yeah, and then then his first job was working under Bobby Flay.
Yeah.
Um,
And I'm not like, again, we are not like, it's not hyperbole with his attitude. Like, it's fucking hilarious.
yeah, he's very.
He's like,
Next time I'm in New York, it's only like $14 for a bowl of Ivan ramen.
yeah.
And he's got 2 locations.
What, Hell's Kitchen and Lower East Side?
Yeah.
But isn't it like,
I was just looking at the picture of one of them. I don't know which one. And I was like, I think I know that place.
isn't it like super like,
Well, they don't take reservations.
oh, they don't? I thought they had a thing where it's like, you're not getting anytime soon. I thought he went on his website and he's like, but you can go to this thing and get like a,
Oh, the Slurp Shop?
yeah.
Yeah, maybe it's his Lower East Side location that takes reservations.
Because one of them was like, I felt like you get on, it just laughs in your face.
He's in the process of opening his own pizza place in, I want to say like.
What if he
Greenwich
just
Village?
makes the shittiest pizza?
Yeah.
Like he's the ramen
Fuck
guy and his pizza. Oh, it's shit. I'm going to put cheese on the bottom and bread on the top. But the thing that-
He's only like a co-franchisor owner on that one, but he's taken over, man.
he's crazy. And like the most relaxing thing as I'm like watching it, I'm just like, oh, that's a relaxing thing, is when like he'll break the egg up and put it in. I'm like, that's perfect. Although I realized that when I ordered my ramen up in New York or up in Seattle, they forgot the egg. Because I was like, I don't remember having that experience. I was like, oh, they forgot the egg. I feel like the egg is like super important, and like he eats like 17 bowls throughout the entire thing. Also, like he was like revolutionizing noodle making too. Like the Japanese guy was like, you don't fucking do this shit. What the fuck? And Ivan Orkin is like, fuck you. Doesn't it end with him just being like, fuck it, and then just like fades to black?
The Lower East Side location does take reservations.
I know. Apparently,
Hell's
he was
Kitchen does not.
cool. That's the one, and that's the one closer to the convention center.
Yes.
So let's make it a geek out field trip. You're not a big ramen guy?
I am not.
Okay.
Ken
You
is,
haven't
though.
had
you can
Ivan's.
You can take Ken. He's a big ramen guy.
He won't try to take me to that katsu place?
The
curry?
The curry place. I feel bad.
It's like on 7th or something.
Yeah, I feel bad that I don't remember the name, because he's like, every time we're in New York, he's like, oh, I want to go curry. That's what it's called.
That's it.
And I'm like, no, I also do not like curry. Although it's Japanese curry. It's totally different.
Yeah, it's okay in doses.
Yeah.
I got to be in the mood.
I had a chicken dish and I enjoyed it, but it's not like, oh, I gotta go to go curry. It's not like slaughtered lamb or something where I'm like, I have to go there.
Yeah,
it's,
or
it's
me
my
like
place.
me
or
with-
your pizza place.
Yeah, the New York Pizza Suprema
Yeah.
or Beer Authority. Or how many places do I drag people to? Those are the big two. The Stout occasionally.
Yeah. I usually drag at least one person to the slaughtered lamb because that's my favorite joint. And then occasionally on sightseeing tours for the Ghostbusters filming locations. Nathan Fillion, Brandon Routh, and Idris Elba.
Solid.
Yeah.
Solid.
Michael B. Jordan for my D'Artagnan.
Oh shit, my D'Artagnan would be
Great audio.
Chloe
Great radio, guys.
Grace Moretz.
Wait, they're still listening?
Joke's on you, Zach.
Or it would just be all Supermen. So it'd be Henry Cavill,
Brandon
Routh, and
Tom
Tom Welling.
Perfect.
That's it.
Yeah.
Cut it, print it.
That's it. I'm done talking. Thank you very much. Oh yeah, cast Jane Levy as Batgirl, but also Squirrel Girl. If it doesn't work out,
Yeah.
I feel like she'd be maybe even better Squirrel Girl. Get her doing something though.
I think Shannon Woodward would make a good
Oh yeah.
either.
Shannon Woodward.
Yeah.
Shannon Woodward.
She's right now. she's Westworld is her big thing.
She's
right now.
Elsie on Westworld, and she's also on. She was on Raising Hope when that was a thing.
She was on that one episode of Psych that I really like.
Oh, yeah, where she's the bad guy. Spoilers for a 10-year-old episode.
Shannon Woodley. Shannon Woodley?
Woodward.
Woodward? Yes.
Woodward, yep.
Yeah. I follow her on Twitter.
Yes. Yes.
She's very active.
Very, very.
Stand by.
I could see her being a good squirrel girl.
What'd you guys think?
I don't recognize her, but yeah.
What'd you guys think of the Force Awakens?
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi tease.
Solid. It was a solid tease. I felt teased.
Yeah. Did what you got to do.
It did what it did. Did what it did.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what Luke means by it's time for the Jedi to end.
I think he's just guilty that like one of his proteges slaughtered all his other proteges.
Probably. Either that or it's only half the line, and he's like, "It's time for the Jedi to end."
The
Sith.
I remember the last time, like in the Man of Steel teaser, where like Clark's like, "Should I just let that school bus or that bus of children drown?" And Jonathan Kent's like, "Maybe." And Jake and I were like, "He's going to say something else," and then he doesn't say anything else.
Yeah.
The exact scene and take. Remember how good though?
The main reason why I don't like that Jonathan Kent.
Remember how good that trailer was though? Like I mean, like, and then there was the one trailer we watched in the bar.
Dun,
yeah.
dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun,
And remember when
you were
Jonathan
like, "Hey bartender, turn that up," and he was like, "Fuck you."
Yeah.
Remember when Jonathan Kent shows up in Batman vs Superman, and he's got a weird accent, and he talks about how he ate cake after watching a horse drown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're like, they don't know.
Well,
what
he didn't watch the horse drown. He heard later that horses.
Yeah, whatever. They moved the thing, and the horses drowned, and they ate their cake, and then
he caused horses.
And
to
then
drown.
Clark's like, "What the fuck does that mean?"
As he watches his like dad with an accent he's never had before and a soul patch he's never
Like
had
Batman?
before put rocks together.
Yeah, he's just putting rocks
and
up.
then he's like,
Ghost.
"Thanks,
You don't
Dad,
need to be
I'm
doing
cured."
this anymore. Like Batman v Superman is one of those ones like you always talk about how like Spider-Man 3, you know, it kind of like fucks with Spider-Man 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Like Batman v Superman helps me like Man of Steel a little bit more.
Because you're like, well, compared.
Yeah, compared.
Yeah.
Because Man of Steel has.
I have that effect with like the Fast and the Furious 5 to Fast and the Furious I
7.
Well, no.
Oh, the originals.
I watched like 5 and 6 and 7, and I'm like 1 through 4 are okay. Like they're all right.
Yeah.
Like 3.
Well, I mean, 1
3 is just Johnny Tsunami with cars.
Yeah. 1 is a movie that like is not anything like it's not
Point
for
Break.
me.
It's Point Break.
But it
cars.
doesn't have Keanu. Like and like 2
What
is
we're trying to say is it's always just it's this with cars.
Yeah. 2 is nothing. 3 is nothing. 4 was the one that like it's getting there.
You can tell they're shifting.
It's like and again, I've said it a million times.
trying.
It's like the weirdest shift. Like they're all like they're the fucking movie. The first one is like they're just street racers, and in the 4th and 5th one they're like fucking federal agents or whatever. Like working with this or that. And but no, 5, 6, and 7 are cool. And Sam and I are going to see 8. Because Chris already saw it.
Yeah. What do you
We'll
think
talk
of? What do you think of? I don't give it. Honestly, I don't give a shit if you spoil this.
It was quite the wild ride. It delivered on everything that I was hoping for in terms of dumb popcorn action, summer blockbuster.
More ridiculous than the first 7, including the infinite runway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this has an infinite ice lake.
Which don't exist anymore.
Yeah. But it's in like Siberia or something like that, so it does. Because no one's ever, been to Siberia. They can't disprove it. It's a fact. Look it up, kids. But yeah, I mean, fucking in this movie, fucking The Rock catches a torpedo skidding on the ice. Not like he catches it in midair, although that would have been awesome too. But he catches a tornado and redirects it into an enemy car. And there's a fucking sub that breaks the surface of the ice to shatter the rest of the ice to cause all their cars to fall into the water. This is totally the climax, by the way. If you don't want to know the climax, I know Sam already said he's fine.
So that's like
But,
all in the trailer.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So-
No, I was like, while the climax was happening, I was like, damn, I know exactly what happened.
Is there
I've
anything
seen-
cool that is not in the trailer?
Oh yeah, no, the heat-seeking missiles.
Okay.
I don't think are in the trailer.
How much
or-
Kurt Russell is there?
There's actually quite a fair amount of Kurt Russell, who I totally forgot his character's name is Mr. Nobody. But
Like
apparently
that Jared Leto film?
Sure, yeah. No, I've actually seen that too. but yeah, yes. But yeah, but everyone was talking like it was a known thing, so I was like, okay, I guess I just missed that in 7 because it's not important. But like
it's important.
no. But yeah, so Kurt Russell, Mr. Nobody, and Scott Eastwood are essentially partners. Like Eastwood is his protege
shit.
that he's training throughout the movie.
Sorry, I just had to.
Would it just
Oh,
be
that's
all
fine.
3 Scott Eastwoods for your 3 Musketeers? Just like the Winklevoss twins or whatever, but they're triplets and it's Scott Eastwood.
I would cast. Okay, there's a serious one and there's a ghost one. Or ghost? Yes, they're
Yeah.
ghosts.
Nameless
Are
fools.
you on the square?
It's just the 3 papas.
The serious one would.
Yeah, my 3 Musketeers are Papa
Emeritus.
Papa Emeritus 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah, there you go.
And then the nameless ghoul for D'Artagnan.
Yes. The
Yes.
the serious one would be like Fassbender, McAvoy, and like Hardy.
Mm.
I think that'd be pretty cool.
Pretty solid.
And then you would have like like maybe Hiddleston as D'Artagnan.
Listen would be a good Musketeer. Like,
Yeah.
He's got like for some reason like Musketeers have to like
Be British.
well yeah but they have like
Even
like,
though they're French.
yeah.
long faces.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
Looking a
Oliver
little
Platt was a
long in the
terrible one.
face.
Yeah.
So would Oliver Reed because he was pretty square faced too.
Yeah.
Square faced fuck.
Yeah. Did you ever, sorry, after this, I have to show you the
Square faced
trailers from Hell for the Curse of the Werewolf because it's John Landis doing it, and he has the funniest fucking thing when he's talking about it.
Okay.
Just remind us for when we're watching this, and we've already watched it a fucking week from now.
Sure.
Tweet at us. Ask us how it was.
The joke one.
Zach.
The joke one would probably be like Scott Eastwood,
The joke one, bullshit.
Jonah Hill. Probably as like Porthos.
Channing Tatum.
No. He's got like thespian ability. And
Yeah, I wouldn't mind Channing Tatum being in.
Well, I'm just
in
saying because
one.
the Channing Tatum Jonah Hill team up.
That's
always
true.
is good.
That is a good team.
Yeah, but I'm not building for success here.
Oh,
It'd be funny.
I would probably put in like a Hemsworth, but it wouldn't be Chris. It wouldn't even be Liam. It'd be Luke.
the other.
Oh, you know what it should be?
one
It should
that's
be
not even an
Luke
actor?
Hemsworth
Yeah.
and Peyton Manning's brother, the other, not Eli, but Cooper.
Cooper
and
Manning.
then Donnie Wahlberg.
Who's the one that runs Wahlburgers?
I don't know.
Has there been any progress with the DC Wahlburgers?
I don't know. I need to
I don't
go.
know.
Is it?
I've heard about it, but I have not looked up. Also, it would be directed by Rob Zombie.
Yes, and he would have to crowdfund it, and it wouldn't be successful.
No.
I haven't.
Ouch.
I love Rob Zombie. I love the guy. I love Rob Zombie, but I have not finished 31. Like I was kind of just stopped. I was like, maybe one day I'll finish it again, but it's just
No good.
it's just the same old thing. Like
It's like Murder World, which is Arcade's.
Yeah, I mean it is.
Lair.
And but he's done, and like it looks like the way it's shot early on is like House of Thousand Corpses, like something before House of. It's very like
Grainy
jumpy and
or-
like
okay.
crazy and like he's already done that. Like I said, I'm so fucking bummed. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but like his Broad Street Bullies, and then he is directing the later years of Groucho Marx, which is going to be cool. But again, with he's got. I don't think it's him, but like a lot of times it's tough to get movies made. Again, why 31 was crowdfunded, and I jumped on that too late. I would have loved to had something from that because, like I said, I like Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily. I finished 31. And also, what was the one he did? The Witches of Salem one. The Lords of Salem. Beautifully shot. I think we talked about that, but not, not my favorite.
Yeah.
Apparently, the DC location for Wahlburgers, the last post they have on their Facebook page
Please come.
Sorry.
is a call to arms for applications. They're saying they're hiring. Come join our family. We are now hiring for general manager and kitchen manager at the DC location.
Dare I ask, when was that posted?
June 21st, 2016. No more recent posts.
They're dead.
They're all dead.
And me too.
Oh, they
Get
only
you high.
and they only have 3 posts. 2 of them are pictures.
Of the grave. Here lies Wahlburgers. Got me feeling so high. God, that song. Anyway, you guys got anything to add? Anything?
Nope. I'm good, man. I'm good.
Cool. Well, thanks.
R.I.P. Wahlburgers DC.
Yeah, but in memory of Wahlburgers, what you should do is pick up Street Angel, the after-school kung fu special, out today. And thanks again to Jim Rugg for coming on.
Yes.
Thanks again to listening to the show and still agreeing to do it, which always blows my mind. So this has been another installment of Catching Up. I'm Sam.
I'm Chris.
Jake.
Got me feeling so high.
Thank you very much.
Good night, Eric Bono.
This has been another Geek Out production. If you enjoyed what you heard, hey, we've got a special episode every Friday. Of course, there's the usual Catching Up show every Wednesday. And you get book club episodes just about every Tuesday these days. Thanks for listening.